The Apostle Paul tells the Galatians, listen, don't be blind. Don't slip in to it being all about you. This is countercultural. You know that, right? It's all about you. You deserve a break today. We get to have a break after Jesus comes. That's where our break is. In heaven. Break time. Can you imagine the coffee and donuts in heaven? Come on. Seriously. Right? But now, as a body, we have to work. And Paul talks about running this race and beating his body into subjection, making it obey and choosing the right thing. Choosing to focus on them and not myself. This will help you snap out of it quick. Pride and self-deception is very, 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 very tricky because it's a tool that not only Satan uses, so don't blame Satan all the time, because I know we like to do that, because then we don't have to take responsibility. But many times it's our sinful flesh. Blame that. Acknowledge it. Hey, God, this is how I am. This is what I do. It's wrong. And please, by your Spirit that lives in me, can you do something with me? Fix me. And because he's a gracious, loving, and merciful God, he says, I was just waiting for you to recognize it. Sure, I'll help you. Take on my yoke. Do what I do. When we have to examine our own work, when we have to examine our own work and see what God is doing in us, it says here, let each person examine his own work, and then he can take pride in himself alone and not compare himself with someone else. And here's the reality of taking pride in self. And the Apostle Paul is going to point this out, is that the work in you is not anything that you've done. It's everything that Jesus has done and the Spirit of God that lives in you. Take pride in that. I can trust him, even though I'm going through these struggles. He continues in verse 5 and says, for each person will have to carry his own load. Never a truer statement was spoken. How many of you, and you have to raise your hand, how many of you have never had a heavy load to carry? That doesn't even make sense, does it? Like, that's life. And God uses that stuff to draw us to himself. But we have to, as we're called to bear others' burdens, we have to actually bear the burden that we have too. And let me just tell you, when you turn it around and you begin to bear somebody else's burden, your burden gets lighter. It's weird. You don't think about yourself. You think about, man, how can I encourage that person? How can I help them? How can I encourage them in the Lord? And what should I say? You start focusing on that, and all of a sudden, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim. That's what happens. They kind of fade away into the background. Yeah, but my teacher at school told me it's all about me. Newsflash, it's not. It's not all about you. It's about Jesus.